Good evening. Thanks for joining us. So tonight we're going to do something different. It's sim. We're going to go over the results of last night's sim because we noticed something odd, and I'm going to dig into it to try to figure out what happened. So, is when looking at the season stats for the 2023 sim, where we brought the all-time greatest rookies team. And here's their roster. All-time great rookies team into 2023 to replace the Oakland Athletics. Um, in the postseason stats, one of our friends, the Nolan Network podcast, who is an affiliate, and you should follow him and check out his streams, pointed out that it looked like the AI had added a couple players, a Pablo Reyes and a Ryan Borucki. And at the time, it just didn't register that it was like important. I think I just kind of laughed it off because the AI is going to AI. I feel like it does stuff like that all the time. But when I was looking at the stats this morning, I thought there is no reason these players should be on here. So when we set up the sim, here's the checklist that I use. Where is it? Okay, the first thing I do is make sure that the real historic transactions are off. Because if you don't do that, whether it's bringing the 86 Mets into 1962 or assembling this team of all-time great rookies in 2023, if you leave historic transactions on, the AI will make the trades and sign the players. It will do the transactions that actually happened during that season. So, the whole point of doing this is we want to bring these players together and see what happens when they play together. Of course, we don't want any other players added to the mix or anyone taken away from the team. So it seemed odd that this would have happened. And as you can see, well, I can just tell you, there is no Pablo Reyes on this all time rookies roster. And there is no. So Pablo Reyes was in the batters data, and Ryan Borucki was in the pitchers data. Those two players were not on this roster. And so I wanted to figure out, first of all, who are they? Ryan Borucki's name I've heard. Pablo Reyes, I hadn't until Nolan mentioned in the chat, and I was like, I don't even know who you're talking about. And it took me a little bit to realize he was pointing out someone in the data that was on the screen. Um, and so here, I'll show you what that looks like. So here, the spoiler alert, you're going to see some of the outcomes of last night's sim, which was a lot of fun, by the way. You wouldn't, well, I shouldn't speak for other people, but I didn't think a team of rookies, as great as they were, if you put 26 of them together, I didn't think they would dominate the way they did, but they sure did. So let me pull up a version where I zoom in a little bit and show you what Nolan was pointing out. I think this might be a little easier to see. Okay, so this looks pretty normal, right? This everyone that we brought in, and I think part of my attention was sucked into the fact that I was a little bummed out that Ichiro didn't get any action. So across the entire 2023 season, the AI only gave him 34 plate appearances. And um, that was a bit of a bummer. And Pete Alonso barely got any game time either. And I think partly because he was in green because he's starting, which is even weirder because this is a player not on our roster. There should have been no transactions or trades. And yet the AI added this player and then put him in a starting role. But because he was green, like the name didn't jump out at me. But good on Nolan for spotting this name and calling it out. I just wish it had sunk in a bit more because it would have been interesting to talk about it with the chat at the time. But this morning I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, it's weird that he's even on this team. I don't know who he is. And he's starting. The AI is starting him. Now, excuse me. It wasn't I wasn't shocked though that it was happening at second base because we actually didn't have a qualified second baseman in the roster. So part of the issue was the Jackie Robinson of 1945 with the Kansas City Monarchs only played shortstop. Even if we had used his Major League Baseball rookie year of 1947, he played first base. So even though he played second base well later in his career, it wasn't on his player card or stats for those years. And so I thought I saw that by adding Rogers Hornsby to the roster. But when all this happened and I started looking at it, well, it turns out he's not qualified at second base in his rookie season. So let me pull up the game and I can show you what I saw. Um, let me get OTP 25. I'm sorry, I was doing some tournament play, so I need to back out of that and get back to the main screen. So we're back on the main screen, so I can show you. So I still got it saved here, so we can just continue it. So yeah, going into the sim, we thought, okay, well, we don't need to add um, second base to Jackie, which I think would have been reasonable given that he played second base later in his career, especially his 1945 um, Kansas City Monarchs season, which, according to Baseball Reference, was when he exceeded rookie limits because he played shortstop. Shortstop. And I think if you can play shortstop, you can probably play second base, which is actually one of the assumptions the OOTP simulation engine makes. Because if you do any work in editor or look at the way defensive ratings are set for an infielder, for example, your overall shortstop or second baseman ratings are based on things like infield range, infield arm, infield error, turning double plays, and that the sum total of those attributes is then used to calculate an overall rating at those positions. And the other thing that's used to calculate that, and here I'll show you on the player. Let's pull up Rogers Hornsby. See, there's no second base here. But if you go into editor, and by the way, this is a super fun way to play the game in different ways, so I highly recommend getting familiar with editor. But in this case, you get your position rating based on these things. So for him, he has a third base rating for infield arm, turn double plays, and then this experience. And so the max experience you can have is 200. So what this is saying is, okay, we're going to max out his fielding capabilities at first base, third base, and shortstop because we feel like he played enough to fully qualify. And so based on these attributes, the highest rating he could possibly get at first base is 154, and at third base is 150, and at shortstop is 135. Well, if you notice, his rating for third base is higher than his rating for shortstop, even though the the defensive attributes it's looking at are the same, and the experience that he was given are the same. So there's like an underlying assumption in the game that shortstop is harder to play than third base because with the same attributes and the same experience, his rating at shortstop is lower. And if you were to do it at second base, here, let's just put in 200 here. We'll change it back to 0, but it's 168. So the game is basically saying second base is even easier than third base, which is easier than shortstop. And so, given the game makes that assumption, I would have felt okay putting Jackie Robinson at second base or giving him experience at second base. Maybe not 200, right? We can give it 100 or 150. At least he can play there. Um, I also feel fine about it because he later, again, plays second base in his career very well. But in Baseball Reference, I think we had seen that Roger Hornsby had played second base, or somewhere I had gotten the idea that he could be our second baseman for this rookie team. But then once we imported everybody and we made adjustments to the Negro League players so that we got a more true reflection of their rookie season stats, one of the things I always do is I go to this graphic representation of the depth chart because this makes it very obvious if you're missing somebody. And at the time, second base was blank. And I thought, oh no, I think Jackie Robinson was in second base with no backup. And I thought, okay, the no backup will be a problem. Since we're doing a season sim, maybe we can put someone there and they can train up. And it looks like the AI put Ryan Braun there because Ryan Braun did not have a second base rating at the beginning of the season. But it looks like he still doesn't have one, right? If you look here, it's third base and left field. So the AI apparently has been playing him at second base. Probably not enough to get a rating, but unlike in tournament play in Perfect Team, if it's not on the card, you can still force someone to stand at that position and they will be terrible, but they will also develop and start to get better. So it looks like from this depth chart, right, the AI's been putting Ryan Braun out there, but it's been starting Pablo Reyes. And so that was the second thing I noticed. Not in addition to Pablo Reyes starting, then I started thinking, okay, well, that's weird because the roster is the same size. And then I realized there's no Jackie Robinson stats. So he's not on the team anymore. And so it looks like the AI has replaced Jackie Robinson with Pablo Reyes, which is problematic because I don't want that in the sim. I want this to be the all-time greatest rookies, and Pablo Reyes was not on that list. And frankly, Jackie was one of the main people I wanted on that list because, especially when you think about what his major league rookie season was considered, because he won the Rookie of the Year award in 1947, he put in one of the great all-time rookie seasons while putting up with a ton of off-field stuff that I think would have made a lot of other players fall apart. And so I really wanted him to represent this team in 2023. So I was really annoyed that he was taken off the team by the AI. And then the next thing I did was, okay, well, let's look at this pitching staff because I went back to look at the chat in the VOD because I wanted to give credit to whoever it was that had pointed this out. And I thought it was Nolan, but I wanted to make sure. And it was. And then I noticed that not only did he point out Pablo Reyes, he also pointed out Ryan Borucki. And I just, I just kind of spaced on it. Well, here he is. He's in the bullpen. And I thought, oh, well, it doesn't look like he pitched much, but he did. He appeared in 15 games. So that's, 10% of the season. That's a significant number of games, even though it's still a small sample size. 21 innings. And he actually pitched really well. One of the things that was really impressive is everyone on this team seemed to have been playing kind of punching out of their weight class. I think everyone put in a season that was better than what could have been expected, even given their great rookie seasons. So even Ryan Borucki here, right, he comes in with a 1.25 ERA, a 1.06 WHIP. And I heard his name, but not in any context like this, like stats like this. So I thought, okay, something weird. And then I started looking, okay, well, who did he replace? And now that I'm looking at it, I'm also seeing there's a Taylor Scott here. I don't know who that is. And he pitched a game and threw an inning. An inning and 2/3, actually. So I'm still seeing new stuff here that I didn't notice before. Um, I think what mitigated some of the impact on the overall statistics in the sim is Taylor Scott was used as long relief, avoid high leverage, and in the mop up role. Unfortunately, the AI also put Bill Foster and Shohei Ohtani in those roles. And that was another disappointment here is that Shohei didn't pitch much. And if you look at the batting, he didn't get to bat much either. I think I have to. Where is Shohei? Oh, he's not even showing up. That might mean that he didn't even get to bat at all, which kind of makes sense because if you go back to the pitching staff, he's not in the rotation. And Chad informed me. I had suspected this based on how Shohei had performed in some draft tournaments that I had grabbed him in. But if a two-way pitcher is pitching out of the bullpen, he can't bat because you can't put him in at DH when he comes in. And so, unless he's starting as a pitcher and as a DH, he's not going to get to bat. And because the AI chose not to put him in the rotation, um, he didn't bat. And then he also didn't pitch much because he was being used in a low leverage, long relief mop up role. And so that was also pretty disappointing. Um, but yeah, so again, this raised more questions. Why was this pitcher added to our roster? He's even playing. And then this other person I just noticed, Taylor Scott. Who are these people? And so the theme of tonight's stream is who is Pablo Reyes? Yeah, and who is Ryan Borucki? Thank you, Nolan. Yeah, no, for some reason when you pointed out last night that it had added Pablo Reyes and Ryan Borucki, it just didn't resonate with me at the time that like that is super weird. That should never have happened. And it's bizarre enough that I want to look into it. For some reason, I think it was because I was so happy that the sim had gone well and that we had lots of interesting stats and had a fun time watching this team basically like trounce the 2023 major leagues that it just didn't register properly that this was something weird. And it's something that I want to address because I don't want it to happen in future Sims. Um, so yeah, so Nolan, the Nolan Network podcast has joined us in the chat. Uh, I mentioned earlier he's an affiliate streamer of OOTP, so please give him a follow. Please watch him and get your drops. So yeah, so I wanted to do a little post mortem to figure out who are these folks. And Ryan Borucki, I've actually heard of. Pablo Reyes, when you said that name, I was just like, what are you talking about? And it was only when I noticed his name in the roster, I was like, oh, he's right. This guy was added to the team. Um, and I don't know if you noticed this, Nolan. I didn't notice it till this morning when I was following up on this. Not only was Pablo Reyes added, he's in green, so he's starting. That's one of the reasons I don't think I spotted him because the white text jumps out at me a lot more than the green does. And I was so focused on like Ichiro not playing much and Shohei not batting that I just glossed over Pablo Reyes. So some of the things I want to do tonight were look up the baseball reference profiles of Pablo Reyes and Ryan Borucki. And Nolan, I don't know if you noticed this, but I just noticed it during the stream. There's another pitcher, Taylor Scott, who was added and pitched a game and an inning 2/3. So that's another player I want to look up. So first I want to understand who they are. I'm assuming they are players in 2023. I think I know the name Ryan Borucki from like a current modern context, but I just want to double check that and then start digging into maybe the transactions, maybe the history of the teams and the players to figure out like how did they end up here. So I've pulled up BREF. So to me, it was really funny, Nolan, that he did do his job. Yeah, that's the other thing. His stats are great. His ERA was so in 15 games, he pitched 21 and 2/3. His ERA was 1.25. His WHIP was 1.06. Right? I mean, that's a solid performance. So even on this team of great rookies, I mean, he held his own. I just want to know who he is and why he's on here. Um, and then the other thing is that struck me as so funny is when you said Pablo Reyes, I'm like, who is that? Because it's just such a generic name. It didn't pop at all to me as like, oh, well, he's a baseball player and we should figure out why he's on here. So here's his, oh, hold on. I got a link to the B-Rep page so I can share it on the stream. All right, so here's Pablo Reyes's B-Ref page. Um, old. He was a rookie in 2019, and he's got a negative point 0.7 negative 0.5 career WAR. He's active right now because he's got a negative 0.7 WAR in 2024. So he's a current player, which means he would have been playing probably in 2023, which is when we did the sim. And here are his career batting stats. I also mentioned to Paul Sporer that I was going to be looking into this tonight, and I mentioned Pablo Reyes, and he was like, "Oh, I actually know who that is," which didn't surprise me because he has to know lots of obscure players, I'm sure, to give us these cards. But here are his career stats. In 6 years, he's a 248 hitter. I mean, he got over 100 plate appearances in a couple of seasons. He played double-digit games several times. He did stints with Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, and Boston. I mean, these are all things that make me feel like I should have heard of him or at least recognize his name, but I don't. But he was active in 2023, which is when our sim was happening. He played shortstop and second base. And I do think this is maybe the AI's effort to put a second baseman who could field in that spot because we didn't qualify Jackie at second base. And um, who did I think was going to. Hold on, let me go back to the roster. Oh, I thought Rogers Hornsby would end up playing second base, but it turns out in at least within the game in that rookie season he wasn't qualified at second base. So he was first base, third base, shortstop. So we had no second baseman. So that's why I think Pablo Reyes was added. Now I don't know why the AI decided to fill that spot with a seemingly random second baseman. Maybe this is just who was available on the waiver wire. Maybe it executed a trade because we also don't have Jackie anymore. So it very well could have been a trade, in which case we got fleeced because we gave up a 1945 Jackie Robinson who led his league in I think doubles and home runs, and so he had like really good ratings, um, not just potential ratings but like actual ratings, and so we gave him up for Pablo Reyes. Seems kind of ridiculous, but the AI is going to AI. So that's mystery number one. Who is Pablo Reyes? And then mystery number two is who is Ryan Borucki? So here's the Ryan Borucki appearance. So he's the next one I'm going to look up on BREF. And at least Ryan Borucki, I've actually heard the name before. So the reaction was less of who the heck is Ryan Borucki, but it was still why was he added to our team? Yeah, so it looks like he's also still active. He's barely played this year, but let's check out what he did in 2023. Okay, so he came up in 2018, spent Most of his career in Toronto. Okay, he did a stint in Seattle, which is probably why I at least had heard his name. 21 games, 19 innings pitched. And then the last two seasons in Pittsburgh. So in 2023, so Nolan's, you're saying you just thought of a possibility. How many players did you have for the final roster? Yeah, so that's a good question. Let's go check that out. Because we're just looking at the stats here. Let me switch to the game screen. And that's a great point because I've just been looking at the stats. Let's look at the roster. Ooh, we have a 28-man roster now. Good call. So maybe we still have Jackie. Well, there's okay. So there's Taylor Scott. He's one of the three people added. So he's on our roster. Ryan Borucki's still on there. Pablo Reyes is still on there. But I'm not seeing Jackie. So that makes sense, right? Because we're saying we had 26 when we imported. And we had no reserve. Oh, wow. We have a reserve roster now. Yeah, we did. We did not have a reserve roster when we started the sim. Partly because I turned injuries off because I didn't want to need a reserve roster because frankly it was hard enough getting the list down to 26. I didn't want to then have to expand it to add reserves. So yeah, this is all new. I'm glad you brought that up to check out the roster because I've been looking at the stats like crazy. I didn't even think to look here. So they've added 51 players on the reserve roster, which we didn't have. And then we know they added at least three players, right? So we know there are stats for Pablo Reyes, Taylor Scott, who are both still on the roster, and Ryan Borucki, who's also still on the roster. So, oh, you saw a 5-star on the reserve roster? Maybe it's Jackie. Oh, it is Jackie. Good call, man. Thank you. You're right. Jackie got sent to the reserve. And check out this editor. I mean, at his editor screen. Oh, you know what? It reduced his stats again. Right? We manually updated the Josh Gibson stats and the Jackie Robinson stats because the profiles that we're importing were weakened. Here, like so here's the Josh Gibsons, for example. Right? On the left is when you import Josh Gibson from 1933. On the right is when during stream we did a 1933 sim just so we can go in, switch the league to the Negro Leagues, go into the Pittsburgh Crawfors, and check out his profile. And that's what his profile looked like. Lots of blue and green, reflective of a season where he had an 1186 OPS, not this super weak red and orange screen, which is what you get when you import him. And so to correct that, we went into editor, we put in all the attributes reflected on the right side of this slide into the version that was imported, which is the left-hand side. And then in the end, his profile looked like the right side in the game. It looked like lots of blue and green. We did that with Jackie too. But now that I'm looking at this, the reserve version of Jackie, it looks like he's reverted back because if you look at his resulting stat line, it's a 207 average, and that's not the player we left the editor with. But when I look at the numbers, they still look pretty good. So I wonder if there's a disconnect here between. Oh no, no, but his power was in the 400s. I remember that because I mentioned in the stream, even though he didn't hit a lot of home runs, he did lead his league in home runs his rookie year, and so therefore they gave him a rating up in the 400s. So this has definitely come down. So the AI has done a few weird things here with Jackie in particular. It's reverted him back to a weaker profile, even though we manually changed him to his 1947 profile. and then it sent him to the reserves, and then it looks like it replaced him with Pablo Reyes. But here's what I wanted to do: each player has a history, and I think this is where the transactions are. If not, I think there's also in the profile. No, there's somewhere there should be a transactions. It might be under, I thought it was under history. Hmm. I thought, okay, the other place we can look at is there should be, our team should have a transaction log, complete transactions log. So if you haven't played the base game much, these are all things I hope you are learning, which is the player history. It turns out this is just awards and stuff. I thought maybe the transaction history would be here. Oh wait, maybe it is. Complete history. I'm looking at the bottom here. Complete history. These are awards. General. Okay, these are prospect ratings, accomplishments, awards, injuries, scouting. Okay. So the next place I'm going to look is within the team. There's a log here. So within the base game, there are major league logs and reports where you can find things like positional rankings, draft logs, trade logs. So what we want to look for on our team is the transaction log. And hopefully it has not just trades and signings, but also like transactions within the organization. And so this would have happened sometime during the season. So we started in March. Okay, this is where we deleted everybody. And I guess deleting them turns them into free agents. I thought they would just disappear from the game, but it looks like they were made free agents. Okay. Yeah, Nolan. I think this is where it filled in the reserves. Look at all the players that we signed. These are all free agent signings. Now, let's see if Pablo Reyes and Ryan Borucki are on here. They're not in the first screen. No. So they signed a bunch of players in April. It looks like to fill in the reserve, but not our three mystery guests. Okay, here's some more signings in 20 in May. Wow, including Madison Bumgarner. Oh, here's Ryan Borucki. Ryan Borucki was signed in 2023, but I don't see anything here where he was activated into the 26-man roster. Okay, here we see released by the Pittsburgh Pirates, signed with franchise Time Machine organization, won the World Series, but it doesn't say when he was elevated to the active roster. You can click on Pablo Reyes and it'll show when he was signed. Okay, let's do that. So we'll go back to the roster, I guess. Pablo Reyes. Where are you? Pablo Reyes. Okay, he signed in July. So if it was as a second baseman replacement, that's pretty late in the season. I wonder. I'm hoping we can see when Jackie was moved. That's why I want to see the log again. All right, complete transaction log. So we know July is when Pablo Reyes was brought in. Okay, there were a bunch of releases and signings, including Pablo Reyes. I don't see anything with Jackie. Had to be early. He had one kid. No, I think you're thinking of a Taylor, right? Pablo Reyes had a bunch of stats. Pablo Reyes, well, not a bunch, but he played 23 games, started nine, and I mean he did well. He had 324. Oh, you're talking about Jackie? Yeah, I don't see any stats for Jackie. So let's go look at Jackie. Maybe there's some transaction for him. See, for him, it doesn't say when he was moved. So type is like up here. I wonder if there's anything in editor. No. Let me go back to the log. Okay, wow. The AI was active every month. I didn't realize that. Okay, here's more. Go to March? Sure. So this is, oh yeah, okay. So this March 29th, where all these people become transactions, I think that was me deleting everyone on the roster to make room for our team. But then the AI turned around and immediately started signing people on the 30th. Yeah, I think these are all players who were on the roster when we started the sim, and then I deleted to make room for our team. There shouldn't be anything in February because that's before the sim started. Yeah. Yeah, so Wednesday was triggered by us. Wednesday, March 29th here, this free agent exodus was triggered by us. But then right above it the next day they start signing players. And it continues into April. They're still doing it in May, but it's a much shorter list in May. And then in June there's a whole nother wave of signings and releases. I guess because he wasn't released, I don't know that we're going to see a record of Jackie being sent to the reserves because all the only transactions it seems to show are ones where the status with the team changes. Either they're signed or released. I don't see anyone here saying like they're optioned or sent down, which is kind of a bummer. It'd be nice to have that thorough of a record. In July, there's a bunch more transactions. We're still signing people in August. So let's go to Jackie's page. Yeah, this is where his history only shows like the news items, like that he was what prospect ranking he was, and that we won the World Series. But let me check all these other ones. Yeah, that's just his prospect information. Let's see, profile, nothing here. Ratings, I wouldn't expect anything here. Oh, news involving player? Is that under history? Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, there's nothing. No messages under any level of importance. That was a good call though. And I was actually when I realized what you were suggesting, I was hopeful. Um, but yeah, it's not there. So we don't know when Jackie was moved. We do know when we acquired Pablo Reyes. Unless, I mean, somewhere there's got to be a log of players being removed from the active roster and sent to reserves. Like you would think that record has to exist somewhere. I'm going to check the league wide transactions log, but yeah, again, these are all just releases and signings. It's no promotions or demotions. The other thing that I still think is weird is we included the minor leagues, but we don't have any minor leagues. Do you want me to go to March, Nolan, in the league transactions or our team transactions? Probably makes more sense to do our team transactions. Let me go to March. All right, scrolling down, all the way down. Here's the bottom of the page. Now you've got nothing. I'm actually glad that it wasn't like some obvious answer though, because now I feel justified in being confused. Though if it had been a simple answer, at least the mystery would have been solved. Now I do think part of what happened is because I set and we talked about this last night, is in the manager options when I put on do not disturb, in the fine print it does say um the AI will make necessary transactions like signing free agents or making draft picks. It will also set the lineups, depth charts, and pitching staff and handle minor league transactions. But to me, I mean, maybe it considered it a necessary transaction because we didn't have anyone qualified at second base. But it still doesn't explain adding Ryan Borucki or or Taylor, whatever his name was, on the pitching staff because the pitching staff was fine. There was no reason we needed a Ryan Borucki or a Taylor Scott. So that's even if the issue was related to the fine print on this do not disturb. I mean, unless it's taking a very broad definition of necessary transactions, the Taylor Scott and Ryan Borucki signs in particular don't seem necessary. Um, I mean, I can see the argument for signing someone qualified at second base, but not those pitchers. Let me poke around, and they brought you to 20 when you're carrying 26, 28. So they probably brought them up when the roster expanded to 28. Maybe that would explain why Brookie had. It's not like one game like Taylor Scott had, but 23 games would make sense for a September call up. You're right. That's a good call. Um, but then I wonder why they didn't just activate more players from the reserve. Right? Like I didn't realize we had a reserve, but once you help us figure that out, why not just bring a dozen players over? Take it, I'll take it all the way up to 40 at roster expansion. Um, but you're right. The timing does probably seem like they were brought over in the roster expansion. So actually, let's go look at transactions in September. Yeah, they're just signings and releases. Even on September 1st, we signed. So I think September 1st is roster expansion day, and we signed a couple players, but it's not showing us anything about who we activated. I think that's a good question, though, for the forum. Is there any way to see a record of when people were activated or sent to the reserve roster? So reserve transactions, where can we see those? So it's no longer 40 in Major League Baseball. Oh, they only go to 28. Okay. Did they do that when they expanded the active roster to 26? That seems like a pretty big trade-off, though. Get your active up to 26 and then you're expanded down to 28. Hmm. Okay, well then that also makes sense why it's 28 instead of some other number. So I think the reason we're probably starting to figure out. Oh, they did it in 2020. Okay. I think 2020 is also when they did the roster expansion, right, for COVID. So 25 to 26 and then 40 down to 28. Okay, so I was hoping the answer would be here in the transaction logs, but it is not. We even have we got some signings in here. Okay, I think between the player logs, or sorry, the transaction logs and the player history, I was hoping to be able to piece this together. But because the main reason is, frankly, to me, it doesn't matter why they were added, and frankly, they played so little that I'm so happy with the results of the sim. I just would like to figure it out so that it doesn't happen the next time we do a sim like this, because it just kind of I think it takes away from what we're trying to do, which is let these players play together and see what happens. Um, but I think I have two very specific questions now I can ask in the forum, and when I asked the other question, I was pretty impressed that how relatively quickly Matt from OOTP, who's one of the devs, responded with a very clear answer to my question about is there a different way so we get the right Josh Gibson. So I'm hoping that we get a similarly quick answer on these questions. I think the two questions are um, is there a way, because I think this is the main issue we're having, is when we go to manager options and when we turn on do not disturb, it's giving the AI too much control. It's overriding our lineups, it's overriding our pitching staff choices, and most importantly, it's making trades or signings that we don't want. Um, Although I get it from the AI's perspective, it's thinking this team has no reserve. We need a reserve. This team can expand to 28-man roster. We need to expand to 28-man roster. Gumbercules, thanks for joining us tonight again. Of all the fascinating conversations you've listened to on this stream, this is right up there for learnings. Oh, great. I'm very relieved because one of the things I was worried about is that this is only going to be interesting to me because I just want to get to the bottom of this, and that anyone else watching would be like, what is this crazy person doing? um, so I think the first question I want to ask in the forum is there a way we can have do not disturb on, but tamp down the control of the AI? Because we do not want the AI making trades. We do not want the AI changing lineups. It very specifically says if we turn on do not disturb, the AI will make trades, it will make transactions, it will change lineups. And so, there might not be a way to do it because it's very clearly saying it will do it. But I'm hoping there's a workaround. If not, the other thing we can do is turn off Do Not Disturb. And, oh, yeah, maybe we can do this. I hadn't looked at this menu below very closely before. Maybe we can turn off Do Not Disturb, but then uncheck the things that make it exit autoplay. So injuries don't matter because we're not going to have injuries. But when we get a personal message or a trade proposal, those are, I think, the main reasons that cause it to stop. I'm thinking now, next time, let's not use Do Not Disturb, but let's uncheck all the reasons for it to stop the sim. Convercules, what if you sim week to week or month to month? We could do that, but it still stops it so many times. It would take forever to get through the season. But I think this will do it because most of the things that it interrupts for are the personal messages and trade proposals. So I think if we uncheck those, we can uncheck Do Not Disturb and therefore not give the AI as much control. That might do it. But I wouldn't have even come to this if it hadn't been for Pablo Reyes. So I am grateful for Pablo Reyes, and now I know who he is. Um, I also like that he's an obscure player, but at least in my mind, and maybe in the minds of people who follow this stream, like he will be just a known quantity as the person who helped us learn this stuff. But yeah, thanks to Pablo Reyes, I think we have a better way now to run the Sims that will still not disturb us, but now leave the control in our hands. And so I'd be curious now, because I had big problems with the way the AI ran the 86 Mets in 1962 and all those other years where we did the time travel of the Mets. I think this way now, it will still follow these selections on the right where I say human control for setting lineups and depth charts. And I think it will now not override us because now we can uncheck Do Not Disturb. So I am super excited now for our next sim. In fact, I would like to do one tonight, but I don't know that I can stay up late enough to do that tonight. Um, but I now know exactly how I want to set up the next sim. Okay, this is great. I'm not even going to ask the question in the forums now because I think this is going to work. And let's do this. I don't want to touch this sim because I've it's been very valuable having it saved at the last day of the season and being able to come in and poke around in it. But let's create a new sim and just test this out. Yeah, Convertus, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Let's give it a test run. Yep. So historical 2023, import complete history, import minor leagues. I'm just going to run with the same team. I'm not going to upgrade Josh Gibson and Jackie Robinson. I'm just going to leave them as is. And frankly, they will serve as a little extra bait for the AI, right? Because if the AI wanted to replace Jackie, it's probably going to want to replace the weak Josh Gibson too. So we'll just leave it as is. I'm still going to turn off expansion. And here's the thing, like I'm making sure this is unchecked. Real historical transactions, don't want that. So that's good. Yeah, maybe we just sim a month and just see what happens. Or no, I guess we have to sim through roster expansion because I think Nolan's right. I think most of this probably happened at the roster expansion deadline. But we can just force it to sim the year. So we're going to call this Pablo Reyes test, further ensuring his name goes into the hall of infamy of our stream here. All right, let's see what happens. I'm still going to have to change the name of the team or at least the three-letter abbreviation. I won't change the logo. But if I don't change the three-letter abbreviation, I will have to manually edit the text file, and that'll take time. So I'm going to try to do this in a way that's fast as possible, but still lets us test out our new approach. And this is great because this, I think, will be super valuable for anyone who wants to do this kind of sim. I mean, I want everyone to learn from my mistakes. And so this has been kind of like an ongoing issue for me that the AI keeps changing stuff. If we solve this, I will be super happy and I'll be our sims going forward will be much better. Okay, it's still thinking. And then what I'll do is once we know that, I will add that step to this checklist, right? So it's turn off historic transactions. Um, it's not do not disturb, right? It's leaving do not disturb unchecked and it's unchecking all the stuff below it. So if this works out, like we'll just have to update our pre-launch checklist. I do like that this stuff is so helpful to such a tiny sliver of the world. the the people who play base game OTP and want to import players across time. But for those people, this will be super helpful. I just feel like we're helping out a niche within a niche, but it's still fun. Yeah, and Hercules, you're saying you might do a sim this weekend, right? Like this might make it so much better. And then the other thing, I had shown this list of the upcoming projects I wanted to work on. The sophomore studs that in the chat, you guys had helped me realize how many good second year players there were. um, but one that's not on here, but I think is time sensitive because I want to do it for Father's Day. Is I want to do a father son team where we bring the son in the prime and the father in the prime and let them play together instead of like what happened with Junior, where he's a rookie and his dad's way past his prime. They get to play together, but nowhere near like, at their peak. So I want to bring the fathers and sons together at their peak and either stream it on Father's Day, night of Father's Day, or the night before Father's Day. Gabriculi says, we have a long weekend for the King's birthday holiday on Monday. So you get the next 3 days to figure out a sim and play through. Oh, awesome. That's great. I don't know if there's enough, but maybe you could do an all-time Australian-born players team and send them to a season and see how they do. BREF has players by country, so like while the game is setting up the season, I'm going to look at that. I am curious now. Let me pull up BREF. My system again. No one's actually helped me upgrade my current laptop, but it turns out the memory is soldered onto the motherboard. So I'm now looking into potentially buying a better computer. Still entry level though, because this is a hobby and I don't want to spend a bunch of money on it. But yeah, so convert before I waste a bunch of your time on this. Have you done this before in BREF? Looked up players by country? Not that this is even the sim you're going to do, but since I brought it up, I kind of wanted to see what it looks like. So there's a way, and while I wait to see if you have done this before, here you go. Here we go. Oh yeah, my system's getting laggy. Okay, frivolities. It's under frivolities here. Birthplaces. So under frivolities and birthplaces. Oh, my chat has blacked out, so I can't see now if Berkeley's is talking to me. I'm just gonna keep plowing ahead though while the game thinks. Um, Australia. There are 35 major players in Major League history from Australia. So yeah, I don't know. That's just something that came to mind. I don't know if that'd be interesting for you, but that's a sim you could do. Oh, use BREF for theme teams sometimes. Yeah, so there are 35 Australians by country. You can also, oh, you can do this too. Sorry, I got a little excited there because when I found out this was in BREF, I got a little excited. There's birthplace, there's also death place and burial place. So maybe you can add to the 35 if you also do people who died in Australia and people who are buried in Australia. So, a burial place team, yes, that would be. So birthplace, and then yeah, player place of birth and death. Yeah, no one says that's morbid. I kind of love it. Player's place of death. So, well, only one died in Australia. I guess that makes sense because they're in the States playing baseball. And so they're probably not a lot of them are going back to Australia just to die. Um, Greg Jelks is the only one who died in Australia. Um, but there's also burial place too, but I didn't see it there. But oh, so I find the navigation in BREF to be a little clumsy, even when my system is not being laggy. And so a lot of times when I'm looking for this stuff, I will just go all the way out of BREF, search for it in Google, and then click on the BREF link that it brings up. Um, but anyway, I just wanted to show you that in case that's something you might be interested in. All right, so the system's ready for us to do our sim. So we'll keep doing the athletics. Yeah, Gambricles, are there any other project ideas you had thought about? It is kind of like a theme team, isn't it? Like when I started thinking about doing this stream and I thought about all the different kinds of teams I used to like make up on my book covers, or I used to sim and once I started playing OOTP, I realized I was doing theme teams. I just didn't have that terminology for it at the time. Nolan Nolan's project this weekend is getting more channel point rewards. So good Berkeley's nope, just finished work for Friday. Oh yeah, right, because you're a day ahead, right? You can switch your brain on now and start thinking. I like that your brain turns on after work. Yeah, so and basically like any kind of theme team idea would be good to do. Wait, Nolan, when you say you've added a few good ones, what do you a few good what? Yeah, Nolan, sitting through my laptop kind of freezing up and the chat going black, and I'm sure this league setup would be faster on a better machine too. I definitely need to upgrade. Or is this work being done on the server? I'm assuming it's being done on my machine, but maybe it's not. Like for Perfect Team, I assume all that stuff is being done on the server. Oh, channel rewards, channel points. So are those awards within Twitch, kind of like the drops from OOTP? Do channel rewards come from Twitch? So I just need to change the three-letter abbreviation for the team, and then we can import the players. I'm not going to do all the other kind of housekeeping stuff I normally do because I just want to see if this works. I'm even, well, let's change the name just so I don't get confused. Okay. So I am going to clear out the roster. I think this will be an important part of the test, right? We'll clear out the reserve again, and when we're done, hopefully this time the reserve will still be empty. That'll be a really good canary in the coal mine or litmus test for this experiment. We're now doing an experiment within an experiment, so let's see how this goes. Okay. I don't think any of the other. Well, let's pull up the checklist. Is any of this stuff necessary for the historic transactions are off? I don't need to do no. The only thing we're going to test is the do not disturb. So I think everything else we just do like normal. So go to the free agent screen to import our players. I think we just did this yesterday, so I don't think our notepad file will have gone away like it did last time. I didn't realize it was pulling it from a temp folder, so I need to save it in a permanent place. So import from the historical database. And Gimbercules, the other thing I used to like to do is just pull together 26 of my favorite players from across time and like the best seasons that they ever had and just like go to town on a league and just watch them destroy. All right, so let's pull these. Let me make sure minors are checked, so we're good. Okay, and then if this says 26, we're not going to worry about Josh Gibbs or anybody. We're just going to make sure that we're not in do not disturb mode and that all the other interruptions are unchecked, and then we'll start the sim. Oh, and we'll have the AI set the rotation in the lineups, but then we'll make some specific changes that we'll we'll check afterwards to see if the AI has undone those specific changes. Like maybe we'll do something like we'll start Ichiro because Ichiro got benched by the AI. Let's start Ichiro in right field and let's see if he stays starting in right field. I think that'll be a really good test. So we'll look for a few things at the end of the season. Did anyone get added or did anyone get added? Did anyone get sent to the reserves? Is the reserve still empty? And then within the gameplay, we'll set Ichiro to start in right field and we'll see did he continue to start during the season? And maybe we'll do something similar with the pitching staff. Like maybe we'll change out the ace with someone that like you normally wouldn't think of as the number one starter, and we'll see if the AI keeps that player in the number one spot. So Gumbercules, you must experience the I don't know if you play a lot of perfect team, but you must experience the perfect team schedule very differently than we do. Right? Like because I have to I mean, even West Coast to East Coast, I'm sure there are a bunch of differences. But like one of the first things I do when I get up each morning is make sure I sign up for the next 5L and 6L, or 5L and uh, bagels and bagels and schmear. But that, I mean, those things probably start in the middle of the night for you. Like I have some things in the West Coast that I mean, they're annoying. Like I never get to do bronze early, or I guess it's called early bronze because it signs up at like 4 in the morning. Okay, Gimbercules. Yeah, you signed up for some and others at 4 in the morning. Yeah, there you go. So do you have a job that has you up at 4 in the morning, or do you specifically get up to sign up for OTP and then like go back to sleep? And I'm only laughing because I've done that. Like I've gotten up at 3 a.m. and been like, oh wait, I can sign up for or I think it's early silver. No, early iron. And I sign up for early iron. You go to the bathroom and then go back to sleep. All right, we're 92% imported. So there we go. Okay, we got our 26 players. Oh, sorry. Let me share the game screen. So we got our 26 players. I just want to confirm that we got the weekend. Let's see. Kimberly says, I sign up for the bronze earlies now. I work online for 3 hours in the morning in one job and then go to my actual job at 7 a.m. as a printer. So when you say a printer, do you mean like here in the US, it'd be like Kinko's where it's like people coming to print stuff for work? You catch all the good morning streams with Doc and Laptop Hound. Oh, that's good. At least you're like sharing the same streaming touchstones that we do. Okay, yeah, we got the weak Josh in here, and we got the weak Jackie. So that's good. There's some temptation there for the AI. And then we'll let the AI set the pitching staff, but let's put so it we know it old school printing with ink and paper. Oh wow, cool. You run presses in a factory. Huh. That's like an old school job. I didn't even think existed. That's cool. All right, we know the AI doesn't like Mark Fidrich, so we're gonna start him as our ace. And we know the AI loves Dwight Gooden, so we're gonna put him in as long relief, and we'll see if they stay there. And then on the batting side, we are going to start Ichiro in right field. And Ted Williams is right, so we'll just replace Ted Williams with Ichiro. So we know the AI doesn't like Ted Williams or doesn't like Ichiro, so we'll see if he keeps him there. Okay, and then manager options. We are not going to use Do Not Disturb, and we're going to basically not let it end exit autoplay. We just want it to plow through. So we'll uncheck all these things. And let's just, I normally do a bunch of stuff with the mailbox, so we're just going to sim the month and see what happens. Okay, let's do, so it's actually March 29th. So if we do a month, it'll just take us to April, then we'll have to do a month again. Oh, it's got to do all the preseason setup stuff. So old school printing with ink and paper, is it like newspapers or catalogs or what kind of stuff are you printing? Or money? Are you printing money? That would be really cool. Okay, it seems to be going a little faster now, so that's good. A lot of receipt books, posters, flyers, etc. Wedding invitations. Oh, books. Are you ever allowed to like slip in your own stuff into the presses and like print your little side projects or anything? Yeah, let's do a month and see what happens. Well, I'll tell you what, even without the restored Josh Gibson, this team is still a powerhouse. All the time when the boss isn't there. Well, hopefully your boss isn't a closet OOTP player and watching the stream. Yeah, man, this team still kills it, even without Josh Gibson. I mean, he's on the team, but he's super weak now. So, all right, let's see what happens here. Actually, let's do the whole season because we need to get past roster expansion to see if it worked. So we're going to go all the way to the regular season end. No, he doesn't game outside of Warcraft. Yeah, I'm still amazed that people still play that game. That game has had legs. This is great. It is not interrupting the stream. So that's the main reason I was using Do Not Disturb, sort of the sim, because if, and you know what, Tubercules, if you're going to do a sim, try it out with those things checked. I mean, you can't go more than a day or two without getting something that interrupts it. Hey, D Block, we're doing an investigation of three players that appeared in the stats of last night's sim and trying to figure out how they got there and how we can prevent it from happening again. And I think we've solved it. So this is great. For anyone who wants to do season sims like this, we've given them a big gift of how to keep the sim uninterrupted without giving up control to the AI. Tubercules, you think this new descriptor is a better way? Yeah, I think so too. It's going very smoothly. But, well, I mean, we'll have to see what it looks like when we're done. But but thanks but thanks to Nolan, we know the quickest way to check it is let's just go look at the roster and if there's not a reserve, everything should be good. Yeah, I did not even think to look at that reserve, so I really appreciate it. I'm still going to do it month by month though because I like seeing the achievements we hit and just seeing kind of how this. Even with the week imported Josh Gibson, we are hitting 136 wins and maybe more. All right, let's see what we have. A 20-game win streak by Fernando Valenzuela. That's insane. A team win streak of 25. A 25-game shutdown streak by Devin Williams. A 31-game streak without a run by Devin Williams. 36-game save streak by Devin Williams. 31 scoreless inning streak by Devin Williams. 2 times achieved. Winning streak of 12 twice. Another 12-game shutdown streak by Bill Foster. Oh, so that's good. Foster's getting some play in this run environment. That's nice. Jose Fernandez, pitcher of the month. Fernando Valenzuela, pitcher of the month. 2 times we had a 9-game winning streak. Oh, a 9-game and an 8-game. 3 Player of the Week awards. And a 20-game streak without a run by Dave Righetti. Yep. Nolan, that was a great call on the Devin Williams. I had forgotten how good he was until you said that. And then when I looked up his stats, I was just laughing because they were so ridiculous. I think it was 0.33 ERA and 0.630 whip. I mean, that's just craziness. All right, so here's the big test. Well, let's just see. We went 134, 137 and 24 with the weak Josh Gibson. So that's incredible that we still won that many games. And so now we're going to go into the roster. Fingers crossed that the reserve is empty. All right. So now we know how to do a speed sim with essentially a do not disturb on, but retaining control of the AI. Now let's make sure. Let's go check to see the changes we made. Okay, Mark Fidrich stayed the number one starter and went 17 and 6. In the past sim, he was really shortchanged and he barely pitched at all. And it did keep Dwight Gooden in the long relief role, where he pitched 74 innings with a .97 ERA. Screenshot those settings. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll do that. We'll do that before we go out of the sim. Hey, check out this. Jose Fernandez in a setup role put up some Devin Williams like numbers, .39 ERA. Let's see, where is he up here? Jose Fernandez. .39 ERA, .89 whip. Okay, and then let's make sure Ichiro got his plate appearances. Wait a second. Why is Nomar hurt? Oh, did I forget I forgot to turn injuries off. So Nomar did get hurt for 5 days. Yeah, I didn't follow the checklist because we were just basically testing the AI. So, yep. So Ted Williams did not start. He's the one now who got the short end of the stick. He only had 61 plate appearances. And Ichiro got a full season, 674 plate appearances, 363 average, 865 OPS, 29 steals, 5 caught stealing. That's interesting. He only scored 97 runs, although we didn't have him leading off. That's probably part of it. But yeah, it did everything we wanted. The AI kept its hands off the lineup. The my only concern then is it going to too rigidly follow the lineup? So I think we're going to have to be sure to really pay attention to the depth chart to make sure we have enough subs going in and out. And oh, and also, you know what I realized I do for tournament play, but I didn't do for this is we didn't set the sliders. So yeah, so the sliders are still on neutral. So that also might have had some issues with fatigue. So I think rather than importing a slider set, I think we should just find or importing our own slider set because I've got a slider set here I use for the 5L. I think we should just pick a manager that we want to manage this team. And maybe that changes from like sim to sim. But yeah, I'm going to figure out which of these managers might make the most sense for our team. And Chad, if you guys have an opinion based on kind of what you know of historic managers, who might be a good matchup for us. Or maybe just one of the settings, like, like one of the like sabermetrics and stuff. We can also always just pick one of those. But we need something other than this. The main thing too is that and actually that's not even going to help here. I don't know how much you guys know about this, but in Perfect Team, and I believe it based on the results I had after I started doing this, like fatigue management is supposedly very important, and we don't have any of that here. So, for example, um, people have different numbers, but the people who do well in tournaments all recommend setting some number for forcing benching for fatigue. I've heard numbers from anywhere from like 90 to 97 for that. So the thought is you bench your players before they get too tired because if they're tired, they're penalized. And then if they're too tired, they won't recover after one day of rest. So you really get screwed for a longer period. So it's better to kind of bench them preemptively. And again, that's where I think that number 90 to 97 comes from. Um, and then the same people tend to recommend doing the same for relief pitchers, but they seem to be more lenient with that. I've heard numbers from like 50 to 75% for relief pitchers. So we need to do that to keep our players from getting tired. Um, Especially if the AI is going to be really rigidly following our lineups, we need to then set up our lineups and our sliders in a way that it doesn't wear down our players. But that's a much easier problem and something I'd be happy to work around than like the AI benching Rafael Santana all the time for the 86 Mets, um, which I think is a right decision, but it just messes up the simulation. It doesn't give me the sim that I want. Now I can do that. This also solves. I don't know if any of you guys were checking the stream out when I was doing the first of the 86 Mets things, but it was driving me bonkers that I would so carefully set up the platoons the way Davey Johnson used to run them in 1986, and then the AI would like undo them right away. So now this way, I think my 86 Mets sims will have a lot higher fidelity, and kind of being adhering more to the lineups that were set in 1986. So I'm going to take Nolan's advice and screenshot the settings. So this, sorry, it's the manager's options. Yeah, so this is where we want it. Mystery solved. Well, I found this very interesting and entertaining. I hope you guys did too. Starting with like finding out who Jose Reyes and Ryan Borucki were. Taylor, what was his name? Let me get it right. Taylor. Oh, this we're in the wrong sim. So, but Taylor, what's his name? Um, yeah, kicking goals on the stream. They're modest goals, but we are achieving them. But I mean, for me, this is a game changer. Like I've always had to choose between, do I want the convenience of speed simming or do I want the fidelity of knowing that like my lineups aren't going to change? Now I can have both. So this is awesome. And now anyone who starts doing this from day one, they don't have to deal with that decision. They can just have both. This is so to me, this is fantastic, and well worth taking the time of a stream episode to do it. So yeah, I think that's it. I'm gonna thanks to Nolan's suggestion, I'll have a screenshot now that I can um, put on the forum, highlight it maybe in the next episode. Actually, this routine is I'll throw that screenshot up and say, hey, make sure your checkboxes look like this. Um, so yeah, I think that's it. So the only other thing is let me put up that list again of upcoming stuff that I'm working on. And the only change to this is I'm working on a father-son team where the fathers and sons will both be in their primes, and I'm going to sim that on Father's Day, which in the U.S. because I learned there's something I learned this year. I learned that I don't know if it's the UK or if it's Europe, but they have a different Mother's Day. So I was when I was a consultant, I was staffed in Ireland for a while, and I'm still friends with one of the folks who worked on the client side. And I was asking about like how her Mother's Day was, and she's like, "Oh, it was great," but it was like however many weeks ago. I was like, "What? It was just yesterday," and that's where I found out there are two different Mother's Days. So I don't know if that holds true for Father's Day too or not, but here it's going to be the 16th. So I'm thinking either the night of the 15th or the night of the 16th. I'm going to stream that Father's Day game. So Gabricules in Australia, right? Our Mother's Day is in May, and Father's Day is in September. Whoa! Yeah, no, our Father's Day is in a couple weeks. It's June 16th. That's a big difference. I think on when I was my friend in Ireland, her Mother's Day was like different by a few weeks. Um, But yeah, that Father's Day is very different from ours. That's interesting. Yeah, so either the night of the 15th or the night of the 16th, I'll do that Father's Day stream. And for me, like the big thing is, it was very cool watching Ken Griffey Jr. play a game with his dad, but they were in such different places in their careers. I think it's awesome that in this game, using OTP, we can put them together in their primes. And one of the rules I set for myself, it's a 26-man roster. They're going to have to play in pairs. So, um, I can't just say, okay, we're going to take Yogi Berra and Dale Berra, but we're going to put Dale Berra in the reserve and just use Yogi. So it's going to be 13 father-son pairs. Now that's going to make it a little tricky to make sure we get all the positions covered. I think the usual suspects are catcher, second base, and I think to a lesser extent left field. And of course the pitching staff might be a challenge because when I kind of tick through the ones that were obvious to me, like the Griffeys and the Bondses, there's a lot of outfielders, but we need infielders, we need pitching, we need catching, we need, and so I've been digging a little deeper. So one of the things I want to do in the next few streams is you guys on the chat were so helpful in getting me to the final roster for the all rookie team that I'd like to do a similar one where let's finalize the father son roster on a stream. I'll come in with kind of like, here's who I think so far are the 13 pairs that make up the 26. Here's another bunch of pairs that I considered. But then I think you guys will do a great job of reminding me of father son pairs that I forgot about, or maybe give me reasons to kind of bump up or bump down certain pairs. And I say pairs, but there's also folks like the Alou family where they have multiple sons, or the Bell family, or the uh, Boone family where there's multiple generations. But to simplify it, I'm just thinking of them as pairs. The Boone family actually like checks a bunch of boxes because they have a catcher and several infielders in that family. So Ray Boone is, I guess, the if you think about from the perspective of the youngest, Ray Boone's the grandfather, Bob Boone's the father, and he was a catcher, which is a big need. And then Brett and Aaron played infield, which are also big needs. So like a lot of non-outfield positions. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on now, and I'd like to have the stream or have the chat help me with that so I can do this Father's Day stream on the 15th or 16th. But then other than that, like this list still holds. I just want to kind of work that Father's Day thing in because um, I do want to do it on Father's Day. Otherwise, like I don't know when I would do it. So so start thinking about your father son pairings. Unfortunately, I thought Cal Ripken Sr. had at least had a cup of coffee in the majors, but it turns out he only managed. He never played in the majors, so I was a little bummed out about that. And then there's a bunch of current father-son pairings where the sons are prospects, but they may have not hit the majors yet. So some of the ones I really wanted to include might not make it because they won't be in the game. Um, but anyway, if that sounds interesting to you, either the game or the roster build, I hope you'll join. Um, I don't have really a set schedule yet, but I think most nights around when I started tonight, which is 10:30 Pacific, just take a look, and if I'm on, maybe pop in. It's been great having you guys in the chat. It's a way different experience having interaction than like I think maybe the first one or two there was no one there, and I was just kind of streaming because I just wanted the video. But this has been awesome. I really appreciate you guys weighing in on stuff. So, all right, I'm going to look for someone to raid into. Let's see if someone's playing OOTP. And today was great. I really appreciated hearing that like you find this stuff interesting because half the time I think I'm the only one nerding out on this stuff that finds it helpful. Oh, Twins is awesome. Yeah, let's raid into him. Twins underscore 34. I especially like rating him because he's been a helpful part of the chat before in our stream. So let's raid. twins underscore 34. Hi, I did it right this time on the first try. I'm getting better at this stuff. All right, thanks everybody. Have a good night. Come Berkeley's, have a good day, and hopefully I'll see you for the next stream.